everyone, welcome back to Broken Pines Farm. My name's Alex, and these are brush piles. We used to have brush A and B, big one, smaller one, still fairly big. Over the years, I pushed everything back in, and we've got a solid 2 weeks of sun, no rain. About a couple days ago was the first time it started raining. So what I did is I lit it on fire to try and reduce the size of the brush. And as I had said before, I would rather chip than burn, but this stuff has been here for so long. We'll go in a little closer and I'll show you what the problem with it was. Now that this pile has greatly diminished, what I want to do is use that machine, the Kubota L4060, and just move this pile to the bigger pile where eventually it will break down and become its own mulch and compost. So we burned what we could. The rest, I'll show you a little closer why we can't burn it. And then I'm just going to try to reclaim that space because I will probably try to plant here next year as we start phase 2 of the Christmas tree farm's new planting. And that pile there probably won't have to be moved until year 4, maybe 3, probably more like 4 or 5. So I'm going to clear space and try to not destroy this if I can use it for compost, because as you can see, there were a lot of weeds and a lot of wild blackberries and raspberry that came up because it seems like this area, so much compost, ash, and broken down material that plants are thriving here. So hopefully we'll be able to redistribute that wealth and use this space in the future. Let's go in closer and see what's up. Here's a great example when I used the tractor to push everything and push it forward and make a neater pile that was going to be easier to burn. I uncovered what was underneath the stuff, and like this stuff is rotten. I can break and chip away at it with my fingers because it's been there for so long that it's so decomposed, it's so wet that this will not burn. And this is well on its way of becoming great compost for some plants. So there's no reason for me to try and chip this. I'm just going to dull my blades. It's not going to work very well. And this stuff is not going to want to burn. Some of the branches on the top were nice and dry and they burned really well, but now what's left is ashes and broken down material that's too wet to burn any further. So now what I'm going to do is going to take this pile, send it over there, and then free up the space, and we're going to make some great compost eventually with this. And whatever was here is now going to be probably a lot more fertile than the soil next to it. And we're going to use the bucket to try and move the bulk of the material. And we'll see how we're going to flatten and soften everything afterwards. maybe an hour later, I had to stop filming because it was raining a lot and only the GoPro is waterproof. But what I realized is this looks like really, really, really good compost. The more I was digging, the darker, richer, and more beautiful everything looked. And I grew my potatoes in something similar to this, and they grew so well, so big, and they produced so well that the goal for next year is to make very, very, very similar raised garden beds for the whole garden. And I'm going to use this to fill those garden beds. And yes, this year, and I'm sure currently this thing is full of seeds from weeds, grass, wild plants. But because I'm using the cardboard method, it's not going to give them a chance to germinate, or at least not as much. I'm trying to smother everything, and I'll cover it up with all the wood chips I want because I have a wood chipper now, so that won't be an issue. So I realized, hey, how about I keep this as a compost slash earth pile. So I got rid of everything that's just big, bulky, giant roots, tree trunks. Everything went to that pile there. Otherwise, I piled everything up nice and high. I like to think that I somewhat rotated the compost, and then I'll be able to use this later this fall when we remake the garden bed. The other good thing is when I tried to move here in the spring, you can see some of the big ruts that the tractor left because the ground was so wet at that time. So now that it's fall, the ground is not soaking wet yet, so I'm not going to damage, or at least I didn't damage the ground as much. And ideally, eventually, I'd like to get a box blade for the Kubota, and I can come back and smooth things over in a much neater way than with the front loader. But if I have to, I'll just use the front loader to fix that up. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. If you're ever on the fence about getting a tractor, if you have the property and money is not an issue, obviously if budget is tight, but look what I was able to accomplish today with the tractor. This is not something I'd be able to do on my own. Well, realistically you could with a shovel and a lot of free time, but this just makes everything so much easier. And I'm still so in love with that tractor. It's doing everything I'm asking it to do, and it's not complaining. It's been trouble-free. The only problems are problems that I created myself by being not careful or being a little overzealous. Otherwise, the Kubota has been a staple in our arsenal to try and maintain the property. I'm very happy that I found a solution to the garden beds now that I have all this rich soil. And it's kind of, well, sorry I'm going to butcher the term, but I guess I'm kind of doing the hugelkultur approach where you pile up rotten wood and then you cover it with earth, and then the decomposing earth is what, wood is what gives you the nutrients. And I can see here there's some leftover metal stock here from the previous owner. Make sure I don't cut myself, but I want this out of here. All right, and make sure this doesn't stay here. I have to get rid of that. Well, that's going to be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments down below. If you've liked it, make sure to hit that thumbs up. Subscribe for more content coming soon. I am going to try to prep for next year's Christmas trees this fall so that I don't have to come back here with the tractor as much in the spring when everything is wet and I don't want to damage the soil, basically. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.